Hello everyone. We have another game with the white pieces against Magnus Jafar. He's rated 1605 and he plays the Sicilian against us. So we develop a knight out towards the center. He does the same. We're now going to develop our bishop out and try to castle quickly. You could choose any square you like, that's pretty active. I'm very likely going to give up my bishop for this knight. Okay, so he plays e6. This opens up his bishop's diagonal. I'm just going to take the knight and play d3, creating a pawn chain in the center and opening up my dark square bishop. Black jumps his knight into the center. We always consider kicking the knight once, if we can, but he'll just jump to the center. We could jump our knight to the center, but I mean, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think I'm going to go bishop here first. Just pin the knight, develop a piece. Okay, so he develops a bishop and unpins the knight. So this does no longer, doesn't win anything. And let's see. I think I'm just going to continue my development. I'm putting the knight here as opposed to f3 because I want to play f4 without my knight blocking the pawn. I'm also ready to castle. Okay, so he strikes in the center with d5. Pretty principled, giving his position some space, attacking the center. We could push. We could just castle. I want to push because if he pushes here, at some point I want to have this square available for my knight. Because if I don't move the pawn and he kicks it, I kind of have to go to a4, which is fine to pressure the pawn, but so he moves his knight back because it was under attack. And now my bishop is being hit twice, so it's hanging. As well as my pawn. So you don't have time to defend your bishop or move it. So let's get rid of it. And now our pawn is loose. So we're going to solidify that with the move I wanted to make. He could throw in this check, queen h4, but then we go g3 and kick the queen. And so material's even. We have a little more space because of the e5 pawn. He has a bishop though. So the position's pretty balanced. And we'll see how he plays from here. Okay, rook b8. This threatens our pawn. One of the ideas for black is to push c4 and get rid of this bad pawn, this doubled pawn. And so b3 is a move to stop that, and it also stops the rook pressure. So it does weaken the dark squares, but he doesn't have a dark square bishop, so I'm going to throw it in to just stop these two ideas. He does throw in this check, but we get in this move. He might try to sneak in, maybe that's the idea. We could always castle queenside if we need to. We don't have to castle kingside. Okay, he doesn't try to sneak in, he goes back. Fine. He just induced this, maybe to him it's a weakening move, so he wanted to do that. Fine. Okay, I'm just going to castle though. I'm going to castle short. I know I have light square weaknesses everywhere around my king. And he has a light square bishop, but it's not like this diagonal's open. And we have to make sure it never opens, so. I kind of want to get my queen over here or here. So it would be nice if he pushed so I can go here. But if he doesn't do that, I guess our plan is to push the f pawn. but we need to prepare it because we're hanging the central pawn. So he does push the knight, but this weakens these two light squares. And I mean, it would be nice to also get it here, but that's not going to happen. I mean, it could happen in 3 moves, but I think this makes a lot more sense because he doesn't have a dark square bishop, and we now have a nice outpost on the d6 square. He actually can't cover that with any of his minor pieces right now. And so we can force him to lose castling rights, which I think we should do. He goes his knight here to try to get it into here, which makes sense for him. But we get this in first. Check. So that's just a free improving move. That's nice to have. It also hits the bishop if we want it. Do we want it? And how do we fix this knight? We have to fix this knight. But now that he moved his knight, he's no longer pressuring this because his knight was here. So we could push the pawn and not worry about it. And if he takes, that can't be good for him. He moves his king here, which looks wrong. Very wrong. And now this pawn's loose. Here. Here. He is threatening some dark squares, but I can come in here. I think I'm just going to do that. I need to finish developing with my queen. I do want to improve my knight, but I mean, my queen's much more powerful. And I haven't moved it yet. So I can get it in the game. Create threats. That would be nice. He could try this stuff, but let's say he does get it here, and I move my rook. I mean, there's this pawn, but that's it. If he takes it, I go here. He goes back. He's hanging the c file, which he shouldn't have put his king here. He should have gone to f8, probably. I could also now reroute this here if I ever needed to, but I don't need to. So I think I'm going to continue with my plan and just improve my queen to a super active post. And like I said, he can jump his knight here, but I'm not sure how good that is. If I go here, and he moves his king back, and I go check, he has to go king over. I mean, I could also just take the rook, so I could do a lot of things. I was trying to look for some cool checkmate sequence, but with just 2 pieces, it's probably not going to happen. I would need to get in my rook somehow, or this knight, but I guess g4 is a move. He goes bishop here, but can I just take this and pin the bishop and threaten to win it? He can't even attack my queen because I take the bishop. He also can't protect the bishop except by moving his king so that the queen has vision. But that can't be good because then he hangs the rook. So right now his bishop is hanging, but he goes for my rook. If I take this bishop and he takes my rook, I'll have discoveries. I could do double check. And if he doesn't want to lose his queen, he has to stay in contact with it. If he goes here, I can take the rook. So here, he takes my rook. I go double check. Well, okay. Well, then he goes here to protect the rook, but then loses the queen. So he's going to lose everything no matter what. So let me just take the bishop. You see how I'm not going rook c1, which is like the most automatic move that most of you would make? I mean, it's fine, but your rook's not on an open file. If anything, you want him to take the pawn. So like rook f2, let's say. Then let him take, and then bring the other rook here so that you have an open c file to attack. But if you put it there first, he's never going to take the pawn, and your rook has no vision, and it's worth 0 still, not 5. Um, so yeah. Now if he goes king back, trying to be sneaky, he still hangs the rook. That's the problem, is his king can't go forward. If it ever goes backwards, he hangs the rook. That's why his king should have been on f8, not here. And then he needed to go g6 and hide his king, and fianchetto his king. But he didn't do that. He went for the rook. So now this should just be losing. And is this even stronger? Check. He has to go here. Wait, that is stronger. And then I just take here and that's checkmate. Wait, what? He can't go here, here, here. He's in check. He can sack the rook this way, but if he does go here, you just take it. Yeah, that's even stronger than what I was saying before about this pawn because it restricts his king. And this idea that I was looking at before, he can't take the knight because the queen hangs, but you could just take the rook. And now you could take this rook, but is there nothing better? If I go here, he has to go back, and then I have checkmate here. So this is better. Checkmate. A little bit of triangulation, you see? It saves you the trouble of having to win the game. You just checkmate him instantly. So that was a nice 23 move game against a 1600, quite, competent chess player. And so we have a Sicilian. And the line that we play is, I don't actually know what the name is or if it has a name, but basically we create a pawn chain, we sack our bishop for the knight, and then we go f4, and we just play that position, that structure. Okay, so we can seize the center, and then we developed to the center, and then we developed attacking a piece that controls the center. We take the piece unprovoked. He has to capture back one way or another, and then we complete our pawn chain in the center. And now we can play with the rest of the pieces and go f4. He goes here. Like I said, you always consider pushing, but I don't know that the lines, and you don't have to push. It's just an option. I put my bishop here. You could put it there. You could also put it here, which looks nice because it targets this pawn. It hits the center. It doesn't even run into knight g4 because of the queen. So it's just another move. You can do a bunch of things. Okay, he breaks the pin. And I develop a piece. You can see this arrow. It's not me. It's the computer keeps wanting to push e5, but it makes no difference. And then he attacks the center, which is principled by him. It's what you're supposed to do as black. And now I push. They want him to put his knight here and attack the pawn this way. I think that makes more sense because then if I trade bishops and try to play f4, he's going to have knight e3 at least, hitting the pawn and the queen. So at least in this variation, if he goes here, I'll have to try something else. Maybe like bishop f4 defending the pawn. Well, whatever. So he goes here. We trade. We defend the pawn center. And now, yes, the position is completely even, but if it's comfortable to play for white. He goes here, and we just stop this. Immediately, we take away all the pressure that his rook has. Because once you do this, the rook never matters on that file, except on the open squares. So it's just a nice move to include. He gives us this check, but it walks into this, doesn't really make sense. And then it goes back, giving us free turns. And so right now it's engine says it's half a pawn better for white, but it's completely even and playable. And I castle, king safety. Now these light squares are a little tender, so you have to be careful. He pushes, which I thought was a bad move because I think my knight definitely likes it here. and immediately from point 0.4 it goes to plus 1.3. So yeah, this is a quite a serious inaccuracy because it gives me these two outposts as well as this outpost. I mean, e4 is not technically an outpost, but if he ever pushes, you can then passant and make it an outpost. So we jump it out into the center, the only logical move. And then he goes here, but like I said, it takes away control over this pawn so we can push, and it undefends this. Maybe you could even push here now that he undefended it immediately. But I don't see a downside to throwing in the check. Yeah, and he goes here, which I think is terrible. I think he definitely has to try to go this way and then play g6 and fianchetto, like I mentioned. And yeah, we have +4 already. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Completely even material, but +4. And that's due to his king safety. It's obviously we have better development with these two knights, better than his knight and bishop. We have more, well, it looks like we have more space. I mean, effectively, I mean, he does have this pawn here, which controls these, but that doesn't matter because they're not doing it. Like, he's not using them. We're actually using this, so it's a huge difference. Like, space doesn't matter if your minor pieces aren't taking advantage of it, then it's kind of almost irrelevant. So we have better pieces, we have better space in that regard, and our king is, you know, yeah, sure we have this diagonal, but his king's in the center of the board, so we're better there too. +4 though, because our knight. Like if our knight was, I don't know, on f3, it would not be +4. So that's important to know. So we just develop our last piece because it makes the most sense. Like, what other candidate moves here? f5 to try to get your knight in. But your queen is just much more powerful, so let's use that. He jumps in knight in the center, and this looks kind of strong, but too little too late because of our queen, +4.4. And it's deadly. And the problem is the king, like to solve all of black's problems, he would need to go king e8 and again run it that way, but the knight covers that square, so he can never go back. Like once he made the wrong decision, he can never go backwards, and so he's kind of screwed. He goes bishop here, but that just hangs everything, and the game's over. It's +4.5. He tries this cheapo, but he's hanging the bishop, which we take, and then it's just game over. He either sacks more material or gets mated. Instead, he takes our rook in his mate in 4, which we find, and we get the mate in 4 just like this. Nice little sequence, cool little mating net. And his rook never got in the game, and he never castled, so he lost this game because he did not castle fast enough, right? Like you could say, okay, this and that happened, but at the end of the day, all of this and that happened because he didn't castle, right? So, like right now, it's move 7, move 10, no, move 9, move 10, right? Like here, move 10. Perfect example. Could have castled, but instead chose to move his queen's rook. Why? Because it hits a pawn, but I can defend the pawn. So what's the big deal? Why is it priority to move the rook? Okay, it may look like a more active move to you, and I agree. And so that would make sense, but you also have to consider like what I'm doing. And you also need to consider your king needs to get safe. Or if you're not going to castle it, you definitely don't want to push this pawn because then I have access to your king. If you don't push this pawn, my knight never gets in here and your king is relatively safe. So sure, you could put your rook here and your king is safe because you didn't play this pawn move. So it's not like rook here is a bad move. It's just you still should castle, right? But you still need to get your king in safety because you never know what's going to happen in chess. You never know how much time you're going to have. If the opponent's going to sack something and speed up the game. So okay, so force move. And now we castle, and it's still only plus zero point 0.4. So, like I said, the engine wants him to castle here, but instead he made this move. And the problem with this move is he gives me access to the king and strategically creates weak squares and outposts for the opponent. That's why it's bad. Okay, so this move lost him the game in essence, d4. And that's why you have to be very careful when pushing your pawns, because you're creating lots of weaknesses. Okay, hopefully that made sense and you learned something. Submit your rapid games in my Discord, and good luck in your chess, guys.